¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday. How's it going, everybody? Welcome Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Derry Bennett. Welcome, Michael Hassler. Bipedal Meatbag Alio. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see that we are all here and not 5G zombies. I'm glad we all made it. At least I think that we are all not 5G zombies. At least I hope so. The GOP caucus failed. Yeah, well, I mean, the whole party's kind of on a fail note, right? GOP since 2015 failing lots. Well, it's been longer than 2015. They got tired of winning back in 2016. True. Okay. We definitely have a few things to go through. No, the emergency broadcast test was just simply that, a test. And that's all there is to it. I don't know why there's a lot of conspiracy theories behind the test, and people, I mean, I don't know if it's serious or not. It's Twitter. It's hard to take the internet seriously, but there were people saying that it's going to activate the zombie virus. The tone of the emergency broadcast system is going to activate the zombie virus. And some people even went as far as to say that it's those who have taken the vaccine. Well, yeah, we all passed. We all made it. We all passed. We all made it. We're not zombies, to my knowledge. I never got a text. Really? For some reason, I got 3. I got 3 alerts. So the first one in English, the second one in Spanish, and then then it repeated the Spanish one like maybe a minute later, if that. So yeah. Hello, 2020. Apparently, the last time this was done was in 2021, but I don't remember that. I never got that alert, so I don't know. It's probably a good thing that they're testing and retuning, because it's clear that not everybody got it. I got the Spanish one twice. The Spanish message twice. So, yeah. And just like Trump, no more QAnon. But yeah, so no zombies. Sad to report. Sad to report that there's no zombies. So the circus in the GOP continues, apparently, after McCarthy was ousted in a historic vote yesterday. 3 Congress people decided that they were going to nominate Donald Trump for speakership. Except, to my knowledge, I don't think technically he could be. Apparently, you cannot be speaker if you have an indictment that may equal in 2 years or more of prison. So yeah. I guess, qualifications. As the Constitution does not explicitly state that the Speaker must be an incumbent member of the House, it's arguably possible for a non-member to be elected. Okay, but that's not telling me anything. Let me see. Can a... Okay. Oh, okay. So I was correct. But because, and the irony, um, the irony is that under these House rules currently, apparently House GOP rules prohibit a speaker, who's indicted for a felony. So that would actually exclude Trump, and yet 3 GOP members decided to nominate him, or said that they would name him. One of them being Marjorie Taylor Greene, and a representative from Texas, I believe. Right, that's exactly what I was saying. The House rules, ironically, would restrict Trump. Which is pretty funny. Just pretty funny that the current Congress made that rule, and it just so happens that Trump Trump is excluded. But they still like said that they would support him. So that would be interesting. I don't think, like, technically there isn't anything constitutionally wise that would actually prevent him. It would. There's no, like, anything that constitutionally would prevent him from being the speaker. It's just House rules, which may or may not come into play. It's not. It's not. It's not like Republicans really care about, like, House procedures or whatever. The candidate for speaker I'm currently supporting is President Trump. He'll end the war in Ukraine. He will not. He will secure the border. Don't know what that means. Said Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, so, yeah, she supported him, or is going to support him. But Trump is terrible. Trump will grind the government down and impeach Biden every day. Yeah, but I don't think he himself can do anything, right? Like, the speaker, the speaker can't, like, vote, right? They can only initiate, I guess, what's on the agenda, right? They can only drive the agenda. But whatever. The point being is that Trump will never be Speaker of the House. It's silly, and the whole point of me going over this is because, yeah, as I was saying earlier, the circus continues. The circus continues. They're literally name-dropping Trump when he has, like, basically zero chance. Zero chance of becoming the Speaker. It would require a significant Democratic support, and it's just not. That's just not going to happen. Also, like, the House rules say that he can't, but yeah. They are the deciding vote in case of a tie. Ah. I guess they do have the power to vote. The real question is, like, how long is it going to take for Republicans to elect a speaker? That's the question. Because right now they're just scrambling. They don't have, like, a solid pick, and they're going to need Democratic support. They're going to need Democratic support. All right, folks, let's get the show started.
Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for joining me. Let me give you a brief update of some of what's going on in Washington from my perspective. You all know that Congress miraculously avoided a government shutdown despite the
That's right. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hakeem Jeffries will be Speaker before Trump. True. Hakeem Jeffries has more of a chance of becoming Speaker than Trump does.
best wishes of some right-wing extremists who just don't believe in government. So we survived that bullet. We will see what happens in a month and a half. Clearly, there are enormous issues facing the country that we are not yet dealing with: income and wealth inequality, a corrupt political system, the fact that 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, the fact that we have a child care crisis now, which is only going to get worse, and needless to say, we're dealing with the existential threat of climate change. Some of the issues that we are not dealing with, while some of our right-wing extremists want to shut down the government. But in the midst of all of that, I wanted to say a few words as chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions about the healthcare situation in America. And as I think all of you know, our healthcare system is basically broken. It is dysfunctional.
True. 2023, more like 1984. Welcome.
And in fact, it's getting worse every single day. We spend as a nation almost twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other country. $13,000. for every man, woman, and child. That's unsustainable and quite unbelievable, and it is over 18% of our GDP. Yet, despite that huge expenditure, we remain the only major country not to guarantee health care to all as a human right, leaving 85 million people uninsured or underinsured. And it is my view, as I think all of you know, that I believe we should move toward a Medicare for all single payer program, guaranteeing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country as a human right. But we are not there now. 0 Republicans will support that, and probably half of Democrats won't support it as well. So that fight continues. But I'm not going to tell you that we're going to pass Medicare for all tomorrow. We are not. Despite our huge healthcare expenditures, one of the other factors that is really quite incredible is our life expectancy is actually getting lower. And incredibly, not only do we trail behind many other countries in how long we live, the gap between the rich and working families is now 10 years. In other words,
Oh, hello, person that's been banned in quite the amount of channels. So, chap, what'd you do to get banned in the chat? So, what did Biden give to the progressives who kept voting Democrats over and over? I don't understand what this is about.
if you are poor, if you're a working class person, on average, you're going to live 10 years less than people who have a lot of money. That is immoral. It is unacceptable. That is the reality today. In terms of prescription drugs, as I think you all know, we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And every year, the pharmaceutical industry makes huge profits, pay their CEOs exorbitant compensation packages. And what is really nerve-wracking for me as the chairman of the committee is that many of the new drugs coming onto the market for cancer and for other diseases now cost over $200,000 a treatment. Yup, you heard that right. $200,000 a treatment. And as bad, and this is the area that I'm working on right now, as bad as our overall healthcare system is, our primary care system is even worse. Today, despite this huge expenditure of money, we have major shortages of doctors, nurses, mental health providers, dentists, and pharmacists. And those shortages will only grow as a result of the COVID burnout that many providers experienced and the aging of our healthcare workforce. And as a result of that, tens of millions of Americans, even those with decent health insurance, cannot find the medical care they need on a timely basis. And some Americans, kind of wait months to see a doctor. Others living in the rural areas have to travel incredibly long distances to find a doctor. This is the richest country in the history of the world.
Yeah, it's freaking embarrassing. But it's what happens when you run a for-profit system for healthcare. Yeah, and only 19 hours. Amazing, right? 19-hour account. The Democrats give something to the progressives in exchange for their vote and support. For what? What are you talking about? What legislation are you talking about?
That's our healthcare system. So, what are we trying to do about that? While we continue the fight for Medicare for all and a revamping of this entire broken system designed just to enrich the insurance companies and the drug companies, while we continue to work on that, right now, what I am focusing on as chairman of the Health Education and Labor Committee is primary care. Now, why am I doing that? A, because I can put together...
Hey, if you don't have anything of value to, put in this chat, why are you even bothering? I'm asking if the DNC gave you a bone. You progressives. So you're saying you're not a progressive? I don't understand what the point you're trying to bring up. Are you saying that, basically, the Democrats are crappy? Okay. Yeah, and? Can you be any more vague? Yeah, it's a clown who's been a 19-hour account, trying to, be a troll, but just ends up looking really, really ridiculous. I don't know. Stop supporting them and voting for them. Oh, so who am I supposed to vote for? No one?
Some bipartisan support on that. We just passed recently.
I
major
get
bill.
paid by Soros, not the DNC. True. I need the Soros Antifa checks.
With every Democrat on the committee voting for it and 3 Republicans voting for it. That's a kind of big deal. And what does this bill do? What it says is that it is crazy that we don't have enough doctors and nurses and mental health providers. So we are putting a significant amount of money into a program called the National Health Service Corps, which will get young doctors and nurses and dentists to underserved areas by forgiving their debt. So we're going to grow the number of doctors and nurses and get them to the places that we need. We are also expanding a program called the Teaching Health Center Program, which allows residents, medical residents, to get their training in other than big urban hospital facilities. They can now train in community health centers, train at smaller hospitals, and get more involved in rural and urban health care and in primary care in general. And maybe most importantly, what we're doing here is making a 75% increase in funding, 75% increase over a 3-year period for community health centers. So what is a community health center? Well, community health centers exist in every state in the country. They provide affordable, depending on your income, affordable health care, dental care, mental health counseling, and lower cost prescription drugs. Over 30 million people around the country now utilize community health centers. This legislation would significantly expand that number. So, bottom line is, we have a major healthcare crisis. The entire system needs to be reformed.
True.
We don't have the votes to do that right now in Congress. The power of the insurance companies and the drug companies is just so great, so intimidating to many members of Congress, they can't stand up to them. That's just a fact. But what we can do right now is make a significant step forward in primary health care. And when you do that, by the way, you actually save money in the healthcare system. Because if people go to a doctor when they are sick, rather than getting sicker and sicker and ending up in an emergency room, which is very expensive, or a hospital, which is even more expensive, you save money. Keeping people healthy, disease prevention, treating kids in schools, which is what this bill does, saves money. So I wanted to give you an update of where we're at. We got the bill out of the Senate Health Education Labor Committee on a bipartisan basis. We're going to try to get it to the floor as soon as we can. And if we can pass this, it will not deal by any means with all of our healthcare problems, but it will be a significant step forward in providing healthcare to more people and lowering the cost of healthcare in America. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.
Paste. All right, cool. Nice. Soros forgot my check this week. I don't understand what the point of even coming into the stream to make that argument. We're stop supporting them and voting for them. Okay, listen, it's not about supporting the Democratic Party, okay? It's about doing what we need to do to lock out Republicans out of power. It's well, for me anyways, in my opinion. That's what I'm using that tool in the toolbox for. That's it. That's it. AZ Leftist, thank you for the follow. Welcome. That's the point of using the tool in that toolbox, okay? I don't care about the Democratic Party as much as I care about locking out Republicans out of power. It's that simple. It's that simple. But Bernie, what about the poor insurance companies? How will they exploit their customers? Good question. We always have to think about the insurance companies, right? After all, who else is going to look after their pockets, right?
Failed former President Donald Trump had his second straight day in court yesterday in New York City over this fraud lawsuit, and it did not go well for Donald Trump. I suggested yesterday that the post-fraud court appearances might be even crazier than Trump's COVID press conferences, and that is turning out to be the case. Trump seems to be admitting to the very fraud that he claims he didn't commit.
I mean,
I don't think Trump understands he's admitting to the fraud, but he is.
I mean, it's not surprising. I think that, like, the reason why he may know what he's doing, by the way. He may know exactly what he's doing. He just doesn't care. He feels like nothing is going to happen to him, okay? Like, he even said, you know, it's a famous quote, I can shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and they'll still vote for me. He believes he's above consequences is the point. So I don't know. He might know that he's flagrantly admitting that he's committing fraud. He just doesn't care because he thinks that this is all a sham and that nothing's going to happen to him. He genuinely believes that he didn't do anything wrong, and if he did, oh well, he's above it.
Take a listen to what Trump had to say outside the courthouse yesterday. You really can't write this stuff.
So he's been given this information.
Contactlessness. Snake? Contactless snake. Welcome.
Now been proven to be false, such as Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach, Florida, being worth $18 million, when in fact it's much closer to $1.5 billion. And I appreciate very much the officials of Palm Beach calling yesterday and writing and saying that she was very wrong. That's not the way you got to the property. So she said it was $18 million. It's $1.5 billion. Likewise, we've just recently sold two properties for many times what they were worth. Many times what they were worth in the financial statements.
Okay, so first and foremost, if Mar-a-Lago is worth 1.5.
What I missed? Well, we're just getting into it. Basically, the only thing that you missed was an update on the bill that Bernie Sanders is working on to expand like primary care. It's gonna move. It's gonna move along, and hopefully, it makes it to the floor. But yeah. He knows he is fomenting distrust in the government to cause another January 6th. I mean, who knows? Maybe. This guy's been known to do that. So the Triple S confuses everyone. True. This just in, I got two texts, one from Matt Gaetz and one from Jim Jordan.
$5 billion. Then Trump owes some serious property taxes, which should be pursued right away. Because for tax purposes, Trump has never argued that Mar-a-Lago is worth that amount. That's number one. This is sort of a circular argument, and a bunch of people emailed me about this. Trump says it's worth a ton because of the Trump brand. The Trump brand's value is based on the falsely stated real estate values that Trump has cited. Trump goes, the brand's worth a lot because of how much the properties are worth. And the properties are worth a lot because of how much the brand is worth, which is only worth that because of my false claims about the value of the properties. Completely circular, but importantly, if it's worth $1.5 billion, Trump owes someone a lot of money in real estate taxes. Okay. Trump then says, how could it possibly...
Well, not someone, the government, right? not someone, the government.
...be fraud when you're telling the institutions, figure out for yourself what this stuff is worth. Okay, this is Trump continuing to rant and rave outside the courthouse, outside the courtroom in the courthouse.
Absolutely no fraud. They all made money. They're all happy, 100% happy. And I think very importantly is everything, many, many warnings, page 1, page 2, and many pages. It says, please You must understand that you have to do your own due diligence, and you have to, above all, do your own research and analysis. Do not rely on anything. Do not rely on the financial statement.
And as Trump says, believe nothing I've told you. His lawyer over Trump's left shoulder looks physically pained.
Also, the financial statements are very strong in terms of cash, liquidity, and everything else. This case is a scam. There can't be fraud when you've told institutions to do their own work.
Trump is saying, yes, everything there was false, but I'm not liable because I told them. You got to figure out for yourself what this stuff is worth. Unfortunately for Trump, that's not the way that this actually works. And Ron Filipkowski had a funny tweet or an excretion on X about this, where he said, translation, I lied about the value of all my assets, but I put a disclaimer on there that you can't really believe anything I say. So it's not my fault those suckers believed me. Trump then continuing and saying that the entire trial is rigged. He references the judge's clerk. This will be relevant in our next story about a gag order on Trump. So this is an important clip.
I think this is going to decide to come. You didn't have to.
I don't have to, because this trial is a rigged trial.
Rigged.
A fraudulent trial. The Attorney General is a fraud.
Fraud.
And we have to expose her as that. You see what's going on. It's a rigged deal. And frankly, you saw what was just put out about Schumer.
Okay, but like, what is rigged about it? Like, you can't just say that when things aren't going your way, you can't just say that they're rigged, right? Like, how is it rigged? Who's doing the rigging? Like, what's the problem with this sham trial? He's never going to explain, because there is nothing wrong with the trial. He's just a fraudster. That's it. Just another con in his long list of career cons that he's done. Just that this one, he finally got caught. That's it. That's literally it. That's all there is to it.
And the principal clerk, that is disgraceful.
All right, so we're going to get back to that. Let's sort of like bookmark that to come back to. But Trump says the whole thing is rigged against him. And then lastly, Trump says he's going to testify. I would be shocked if Trump testifies. It would be a disastrous legal decision. Maybe he's not going to be able to be convinced by his lawyers not to. But here's what he said about.
Well, his lawyers forgot to file the correct paperwork for a jury trial. So I don't know if they're the most competent of legal team advice.
Testify.
Yes, I will. At the appropriate time, I will be. I think it's going very well. Everybody was given financial statements. The financial statements are extremely strong.
Okay, super strong statement, says Donald Trump. Trump says he will testify. I doubt it. I still would guess that everyone in Trump's orbit, not just his lawyers, will come to him and say, you do not want to testify. Do not testify. The risk for lying, the risk for perjury, the risk for further incriminating himself and embroiling himself in more problems is just so great, especially because it's all driven by Trump's egocentric narcissism, in which he thinks he's so much smarter than everybody else, so much more clever, articulate, and compelling as a speaker, that he'll just be able to convince everybody that he's telling the truth. And of course, that's not the way it has worked with investigators so far. So every day, Trump's post-court and pre-court appearances are getting wackier and wackier. And now Trump has been slapped with a gag order. Let's talk about that next. Think of your most personal emails.
Show on your own time, Pacman. Yeah, I mean, he's not he's not capable of shutting up. So yeah, if Trump testifies, he's gonna perjure himself. I mean, you know, he's been told not to harass witnesses and intimidate witnesses, and he does it anyways. We'll see if he violates this gag order, if he hasn't already. I mean, like, this is what you can expect, right? Like Trump reposting the Gateway Pundit stuff about known leftist Judge Engoron. Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff, you know. Someone called Guinness World Records. We have a candidate for fastest quarter violation in human history. True. Trump wants detention. Well, no, Trump thinks that he's above everything. Trump thinks he's above everything. Anyways. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that he's currently posting on social media. Completely lost in the sauce. All right, let's shift gears, all right?
We need to talk about tipping.
From dine-in restaurants to even the vet's office, the pressure to tip has reached a tipping point.
What is the service that this tip is for?
Specifically, tipping in America.
30% of Americans think that tipping culture is out of control.
I don't tip. What do you mean you don't tip?
They don't believe in it.
Shut up.
Are you okay? Yeah.
There's no escaping the iPad swiveled in your face.
Yeah, 100% tipping culture has gotten out of control. And I'm sorry, did Trump duplicate the Canadian toonie? What is toonie? Oh, the $2 coin? I don't know. Let me see if I can find the ad again. Apparently it's a gold coin. A free gold-plated 2024 Trump coin issued to all patriots. All patriots. But what's the alternative? Paying workers more? That's insanity. That's right. No mandatory tipping for me. Yeah, in my opinion, tipping shouldn't be a thing. Just pay your workers a living wage, okay? Oh yeah. Does look like it. I had one of these, by the way. I don't know where it is, but I had a coin like this. I don't know what the point is of bringing your alt accounts, because it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work here. I don't know. Trolls be trolls. Anyways, tipping culture is completely out of control. It should never exist. Given to all patriots for $99. Tipping culture should never exist in the first place. Just pay your workers a living wage. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be in business. And the fact that you have to, like, essentially guilt trip your customers into paying your workers is wild to me. Wild.
Is 15% enough? No, it's more like 20% now, right? I mean, I should tip more because I don't want to seem like an asshole. I'm not an asshole, right? Do I have to tip when I get carryout? I mean, I came and I picked it up. Has it always been like this? Breathe. It's not just you.
That's a good tip. That's 25%. What do you mean? Okay, you guys take Apple Pay?
The real reason tipping has gotten so frustrating is because your wallet is actually subsidizing the payroll for large corporate chains across the country. Millions of workers in America are paid a shockingly low tipped minimum wage of $2.13 an hour. That means they have to rely on a customer's tips to make a living wage.
Which is wild. Wild. That's the thing. Imagine seeing like your paycheck be basically nothing and have to rely on people's tips. Also, like, what kind of like scumbag like business model is it that you basically like guilt trip your own customers, your own paying customers, into essentially paying your staff a living wage? I use living in quotation marks because even with tips, like it's hard. It's hard to make it in the service industry. Tipping, SNAP, and most other piecemeal social programs are all basically corporate subsidies. Yeah, 100%. That's true. Yep.
The $2.13 an hour tipped wage has been frozen since 1991.
And to add to that frustration, tipping laws are incredibly confusing and inconsistent. If you took a road trip across the country and tipped 20% everywhere you went, your money would have a radically different impact on the workers you're interacting with, depending on
capitalism. Yep. Peak capitalism.
North America is the only region in the world that has this kind of tipping culture. And why is North America so behind? Basically, it can be all tied back to one lobbying group determined to keep workers and customers frustrated while they make more money for themselves. They're called the National Restaurant Association. They play a big role in all of this, and we'll get back to them in a minute, but first we have to go...
The other really bad NRA. Got it.
Back farther and look at how the tipping practice arrived in this country. It's the...
Yeah, I mean, like, no surprise that this is only being kept alive by, like, the restaurant or whatever. The restaurant, like, association. Yeah, it's a pretty, like, scummy business model to have your customers essentially make up the wages of your employees. Like, that's your job. Like, if I'm selling my labor to you as we do under capitalism, I expect to get a fair price for it. But yet capitalists attempt to sell this as a good system, get really weird when workers actually ask for the fair price of their labor. Are there any good NRAs? Not as far as I can recall at the second.
1850s, and rich Americans traveling to Europe are taking notice of a unique custom here where aristocrats give their servants small amounts of money to acknowledge their work. They called it tipping. The rich Americans were like, whoa, that's dope, let's try this back home. But back in America, people were not into this tipping idea. The everyday barmaid was like, yeah, no, I have 4 kids and can't afford this. And the European immigrants were like, absolutely not. We just left this aristocrat nonsense and we are not bringing that energy here. The whole concept was seen as anti-democratic and deeply un-American. But in 1860, something big happened. Emancipation. Now there was this huge population of newly freed black men and women looking for work. White business owners knew they could exploit these vulnerabilities and pay black Americans as little as possible. They remembered that tipping system from Europe and they thought they might give it a try. Only this time, they were going to do it their own way. They thought, what if instead of paying these people a wage, we ask the customer to provide a small tip for their service, and then these workers can live solely off of that.
Why should it be your burden of responsibility to give me all this money?
In the restaurant and railroad industry, this became the standard, and the mutated American version of tipping was officially a go.
Tips had replaced wages.
But over in Chicago, the long hours and little pay for porters in the Pullman Car Company became too much. So after years of fighting and organizing under the leadership of Philip Randolph, they successfully created a union that guaranteed them a wage. It was an incredible win for these men.
Unions get the goods, folks. Nice.
But not everybody was happy about this. Restaurants were taking notice of these workers fighting for a fair wage, and they didn't want this happening. So to ensure cheap labor, they banded together and formed the National Restaurant Association. The NRA's lobbying efforts were clear from the beginning. Pay workers as little as legally possible. Cut to 1938, hello Great Depression and economic turmoil. The government steps in with the New Deal and creates the first federal minimum wage of 25 cents an hour. Now all workers in this country were guaranteed to be paid a wage at the minimum, except tipped restaurant workers. They were left out of the bill. Why?
Because of NRA lobbying.
30 years later, during the Civil Rights era, mounting pressure from the Black community pushed Congress to finally address tipped restaurant workers making a wage. But instead of giving them the minimum, Congress added a tip credit that guaranteed these workers a sub-minimum wage. This meant workers could legally be paid less than the minimum wage because, theoretically, the tips they got...
That's wild that, what's the point of a minimum wage? Right? The point is that it would be the minimum required to have and cover cost of living, right? That's the whole point and concept behind the minimum wage. The fact that you're like, yeah, let's do sub minimum. So in other words, yeah, let's make sure people can't afford the minimum that it would cost to live. That's why I rarely tip. I mean, then don't go out. It's that simple. Donald Trump won like a baby and fled New York today. Yeah, we saw. We saw. Don't get me wrong, it's messed up, but the anger should be directed at the business owners. At the same time, you can't screw workers because they rely on this.
Got from customers would make up the difference. And if their tips didn't bring their take-home pay up to the minimum wage, their employer legally had to pay them that missing difference. Make sense?
Depending on what shift you end up with and what time of year it is, you kind of can end up pretty easily getting screwed by not having enough hours. Technically, they're supposed to balance it out anyway, but it can be a lot to expect and hope for if you're not already making a livable wage, The
sub-minimum wage stayed 50% below the federal minimum wage for decades until 1991, when tipped restaurant workers were making $2.13 an hour. That rate hasn't changed since 1991. Currently, right now, in 2023, nearly 20 states legally pay tipped restaurant workers $2.13 an hour. Others pay just cents more than that.
When you are paying sub-minimum wage, your workers are living in poverty. That's just the bottom line. I was living in poverty. Your rent is $1,500. So you have to hustle, put up with all kind of sexual harassment, put up with all kind of everything from your boss, from your customers, so you can make it.
Do you know what it means when somebody pays you minimum wage? You know what your boss was trying to say? It's like, hey, if I could pay you less, I would. But it's against the law.
The sub-minimum wage doesn't just apply to tipped workers. It also applies to people with disabilities, youth, and those who are incarcerated. In Alabama, for example, workers under the age of 20 can make as little as $4.25 an hour for their first 90 days of employment.
That's wild. I only tip to the worker, not the restaurant. Well, I mean, yeah, that's when you leave the tip at the table, it's for the worker, right? That's usually how it works. Depends. Yeah.
These people are doing the same work as everybody else, but they're being paid less purely because they're younger. Only 7 states mandate that all workers, regardless of tips, must be paid the full state minimum wage. Why so few states, you might ask? The NRA.
From my cold, dead hands.
The other NRA. Today, the National Restaurant Association is driven by large corporate chains, and they spend millions on political lobbying that makes the lives of restaurant workers harder. The NRA's lobby is so massive, it's really hard to explain just how deep they're in with Congress. Here's one example. Remember how I mentioned the sub-minimum wage has stayed $2.13 since 1991? That's because of Herman Cain.
Is this a great country or what?
Today, I am announcing that I am running for President of the United States of America.
Before he ran for president, he got his start working as a mathematician for Coca-Cola, then managed hundreds of Burger Kings, and eventually became CEO of a popular pizza chain.
Enjoy your Godfather's pizza.
His junk food career path led him to become head of the National Restaurant Association. In the 90s, he struck a deal with Clinton and the Democrats, saying they could raise the overall minimum wage to $5.15 as long as they kept the sub-minimum wage frozen forever at $2.13 an hour. And that's exactly where it remains today. Frozen.
Jesus.
You know, never mind the fact that you can't even get a coffee at McDonald's for $2.
That's wild. I did not know that. What an absolute ghoul. What a freaking ghoul, man.
Anymore, but whatever, moving on. This same kind of deal happened in New York when they raised the minimum wage to $17 an hour and left out tipped workers. This is what the NRA fights for, and where does their large lobbying budget come from? Some of it comes from the membership dues paid by the chains like McDonald's and Starbucks, but a lot of it comes directly from the wallets of the workers they're exploiting. A New York Times investigation showed how the NRA's lobbying budget has come from charging millions of waiters and cooks mandatory food safety courses. That means workers have been unknowingly giving their money to a group that acts directly against their interests and lobbies to keep their wages as low as possible. Okay, but what does the NRA have to say for themselves? The NRA plays a very clever trick. They pit the livelihoods of small businesses and tipped workers against each other, as if the two are always mutually exclusive. They like to claim that mom and pop restaurants simply cannot survive if they pay their employees a full minimum wage. It's a fear tactic that works because who doesn't want to protect small businesses?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, small or otherwise, if you can't pay your workers a living wage, you should not be in business. That's simple. Rest in peace, Herman Cain. Yes. Absolute ghoul.
They're leveraging the vulnerabilities of small businesses to spread their agenda and keep wages low. The reality is consumer spending is higher when people are paid more. 2 One Fair Wage studies compared California, which is a state without a sub-minimum wage, to Maryland and New York, which are states with a sub-minimum wage. The study found that California had the highest rate of restaurant sales. California also had a larger small business growth rate in the restaurant industry compared to New York. And what's crazy is the NRA knows small businesses can survive if they're paid higher wages. They know this. During a shareholders meeting in 2021, the Denny's CFO told investors that the California law raising the minimum wage to $15 actually improved business.
They had 6 consecutive years of positive guest traffic, not just positive sales, but positive guest traffic as the minimum wage was going up, putting money into the pockets of our consumers to spend back with us. So we actually have seen the benefit of minimum wage in a tempered way.
This means that after years of fighting against minimum wage increases and insisting doing so would kill restaurants, these restaurants in the NRA were actually like, never mind, we're good, actually, we'll be fine. There's nothing to worry about here. Another talking point the NRA has is insisting that with the tip credit, workers never actually make $2.13 an hour, and that employers who allow this are breaking the law. Over a third of tipped workers report their tips and wages did not bring them up to their state's minimum wage. The US is the only country who has a tipping system like this. This is a uniquely American problem. There is good news in this story. We are in an extremely historic time for workers.
True.
Let's go back to Chicago, the same city where the Pullman Porters unionized almost 100 years ago. The Chicago City Council is about to pass legislation that would phase out the sub-minimum wage there. That means tipped workers in Chicago will make at least $15.80 an hour with tips paid on top.
This is going to be so historical when one fair wage passes here in Chicago. It's going to be national news because it started here.
The One Fair Wage Ordinance had so much energy behind it, from workers to local aldermen to Mayor Brandon Johnson, that even the Illinois Restaurant Association came out and supported the move, securing a compromise to phase the wage increase over 5 years. And the NRA is furious at the IRA. I mean, if I was the NRA, I'd be furious too. Think about it. Chicago is the largest American city to independently phase out the sub-minimum wage. This could have a huge impact across the country. In over a dozen states, there are bills moving right now to push for the same thing. Over 1 million workers have left the restaurant industry, and 80% say the only thing that would bring them back is a full, livable wage guaranteed by law.
I love what I do. It's the passion to see somebody happy, or you fixing something that they like, and they enjoy it.
Restaurant owners, most of them do want to treat their workers right, do want to make sure that they're taking care of their workers. If low wages is a higher turnover rate, higher wages is a low turnover rate, because it shows that you actually care about your worker.
There's a way to get this done where the CEOs and the leadership are not the only ones that can feed their families and go on vacation and enjoy life.
And so now workers have a choice. There's no going back to sub-minimum wages. Now it's just painting it for us and the next generation to come.
We will come back to work because it's livable now.
So, should you stop tipping? No. Tips are a great way to appreciate workers providing you a service on top of their wage, but they shouldn't be used as a replacement for a living wage.
True. Yeah. So, what is the point of working if your job, if you work full time? The whole point, the idea, the theory behind capitalism and whatnot is we're being told that this is a good system because, hey, you just sell your labor and that's it. You get money for the labor and, you're supposed to live off that. But if I work full time and I cannot support myself, I can't support the cost of living, then what is the point? Why would I go to work?
That means I want a $15 an hourly wage on top of my tips on top.
We started this video complaining about how frustrating tipping is in America, and we learned that the reason it's like this is directly because of how tipping started and the fact that we use it as a replacement for a wage. The only way to fix this is to reapproach how we dine out. The responsibility of a wage should not be on the customer.
True.
We have to eliminate the sub-minimum wage and pay people fairly. Before you go, please support our work by liking this video and subscribing to our channel.
Based. All right. I can say with confidence that the chances of Trump being the Speaker of the House is incredibly low. Okay? The chances of Trump being the Speaker of the House is incredibly low, so... All right, so speaking of workers, it looks like it's happening, folks. More than 75,000 healthcare workers begin the strike at Kaiser Permanente. More than 75,000 workers at Kaiser Permanente launched a strike on Wednesday, today, with a coalition of unions alleging that the healthcare system is engaging in unfair labor practices, because it is. One thing Trump has to learn to read. True. Employees in Virginia and Washington, D.C. walked off at the job at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, while those in California, Colorado, and Washington began the strike at 9 a.m. Eastern, beginning the largest healthcare workers' strike in U.S. history. Those in mid-Atlantic states will be striking for 1 day, while those in western states will be striking for 3 days. The strike includes hundreds of positions, including nurses, emergency department technicians, pharmacists, optometrists, home health aides, medical assistants, dental assistants, and more. The coalition of Kaiser Permanente unions, which represents more than 85,000 workers, said Kaiser is experiencing a short staffing crisis, and that unsafe levels of staffing can result in long wait times, patient neglect, and missed diagnoses. So like all these clowns who are like, well, you know, it's a healthcare system, it's gonna have wait times and blah, 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 blah. Well, what the heck is this? Additionally, the coalition is advocating for better medical plans for retirees, as well as protections against work that is outsourced and subcontracted. The coalition is a non-profit organization that have been bargaining, and the non-profit organization have been bargaining since April, but were unable to reach an agreement before the contracts expired on September 30th. In a statement to ABC News on Wednesday, Kaiser said the bargaining was ongoing and some agreements had been reached. Both Kaiser Permanente Management and Coalition Union representatives are still at the bargaining table, having worked through the night in an effort to reach an agreement. There has been a lot of progress with agreements reached on several specific proposals late Tuesday. The statement continued, we remain committed to reaching a new agreement that continues to provide our employees with market-leading wages, excellent benefits, generous retirement income plans, and valuable professional development opportunities. Kaiser said throughout the strike, all of its hospitals and emergency departments will remain open, and contract workers have been hired to backfill the striking employees. The Kaiser strike comes amid several major labor actions in other sectors of the workforce. The UAW launched a strike on September 15th against the Big Three, Stellantis, General Motors, and Ford, after failing to reach a contract agreement. Additionally, the Screen Actors Guild, or SAG-AFTRA, is continuing its strikes against the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, which began on July 14th. The Writers Guild ended their strike last week after 150 days, securing better pay and regulations for the use of AI and certain projects. Nice. Nice. And of course, Bernie Sanders showing support for the healthcare workers. I stand in solidarity with the 75,000 healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente who are fighting for safe staffing ratios and better wages, benefiting and working conditions. If Kaiser can afford to pay its CEO over $15.4 million, it can afford to treat all its workers with respect. True. So we will see how that goes. Let's do a meme article, yeah? Nikki Haley surpasses DeSantis in a New Hampshire poll. Granted, this is New Hampshire only, but I got a good chuckle out of this. It's a good meme. Nikki Haley's momentum looks like it's for real. It's not. It's not. Neither DeSantis or Nikki Haley or anybody who is not Trump is anywhere close. So yeah, nice try, but no, there's no momentum here. It's just for the memes, okay? A new poll of likely Republican primary voters in New Hampshire shows it's the former South Carolina governor, not Florida DeSantis, running second in the primary state. Still boatload behind Trump, okay? They both remain far behind the frontrunner of Donald Trump. The former president leads his Republican rivals with 49%. 49%. So, yeah. In support in all polls of the 500 likely GOP primary voters that was conducted after the second debate had the margin of error of plus or minus 4.4 points. The poll is the latest measure of Haley's bounce and DeSantis' backslide in the GOP primary, where the former UN ambassador has ticked up in polls following the first two debates and is drawing increased donor interest. I don't even know what that means. Like, there's no scenario where any of these people are going to win. Hold on, folks. Give me a second.
By the way, though, hold on. Please,
let me see something.
Apparently, apparently Cenk Uygur is debating Hassan. Whew. Oh boy. Apparently Cenk Uygur is debating Hassan.
Your cause to say that the budgets have gone up and crime has gone down. That did happen. I don't think that's a
family
great
squabbles
either. Don't get me wrong. Okay, now I think and I agree with you that the bigger problem, the cops not doing their job, is in a story that I'm going to tell you. But it's also because of some of the laws that we passed, and so now some very violent crimes are misdemeanors, and they should not be misdemeanors because misdemeanors get pled down to nothing. Felonies get pled down to misdemeanors. Misdemeanors get pled down to nothing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so no one's talking about that. That is a giant part of the problem.
What crimes are you talking about?
Some sexual assaults are misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's insane. It's totally insane. So the guy in New York subway took a dump and smeared it on a woman's face, and that was a misdemeanor. How is that a misdemeanor? Are you insane?
Okay.
So look. And maybe some mistakes were made there, and they should have made some of those things misdemeanors. And that's exactly my point. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you don't have to go to extremes and say we should only focus on one or the other, right? But now I'll give you an anecdote that is an example of the type of thing that happens. So I have a neighbor who's...
by the way, we're not operating under the principle that, like, New York, the New York Police Department, or the New York court structure, or New York in general, currently led by a cop mayor, is in any way, shape, or form like engaging in police abolition, right? Or defunding the police.
No, but...
Because it is more expensive to run the NYPD than like multiple countries' military.
Yeah, I don't think the budget is the issue in New York. So,
okay.
So let me give you the
anecdote.
anecdote.
But you used the poop example to,
No, that example was not about budgeting at all. That example was, if that's a misdemeanor, it gets pled down to nothing. So we have to make sure the serious crimes are felonies.
Okay. By the way, so you and I do agree on NYPD not being underfunded, but if you ask the NYPD, they are the most underfunded.
Oh, of course, they're always going to say that.
Okay.
Look, are you kidding me?
So they're lying. Okay.
So here, I'm going to get to that in a second. Of course, they're lying. Of course, they are. So it's not. What am I trusting? Do I just trust cops? No way. So let me explain. So I have a neighbor. We wound up having some deranged person.
Also,
on
that
the
guy was
street.
charged with felonies, apparently. The poop man.
Okay. So good. I'm happy that he was, but there's
So the question in that situation though is
but
like,
originally he was let go.
This
And
is
so
rough.
we have to so that's an example. There are many examples, but let's if you want to dive into that one and see what went wrong
it's
as to
your
why he was
anecdote.
let go. So that's great. Let's find out why he was let go, because he definitely should not have been let go.
okay, so you brought up an anecdote.
So that
where,
was
like,
about cash bail.
So you're
he got
happy
out
with
because there's no
justice being
cash
served.
bail, right?
Okay, got it.
So
cash
okay.
bail was important to talk about as well, which is really important, especially with the conditions in Rikers as the way that they are. One
I'll
reason
get
why.
to that. Hold on, can I just tell the story because it informs
but
the
I
rest
have
of the
to-
conversation?
Whew. So what it sounds like is freaking jank against cash, the ending of cash bail, and trying to make the argument that you have to be tougher on crime, I guess, make things more seriously felonies. I don't understand what the argument is, because the whole point of ending cash bail is so that you don't have essentially a two-tiered system where people who are rich and can afford it can just get off, right? It doesn't matter. And if you are not wealthy, then you have to sit in jail for a crime, remember, innocent until proven guilty, that you may or may not have committed. Which is ridiculous. Now, of course, when you implement something like this, obviously the judge is going to have discretion if you're a threat to public safety or whatnot. That's a different story. Jenk started to sound like the granddad who doesn't get enough family visits. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But that should be determined by a judge and by the nature of the crime, right? You're not going to let an alleged murderer out, right? On bail. Obviously, violent crimes that may pose a threat to public safety, you're not going to be let out. But to say that, that's why we need cash bail, ?
Cause crime, that the poverty cycle, the cycle of poverty and violence. That is why we are now at a situation where our prison population, our prisons are filled to the fucking brim, and the alternative is what? Building more prisons, I guess, instead of trying to push for a different way of trying to solve the underlying reasons as to why crime and mental disorder manifests in the public. That is my argument.
Yeah. No. So listen, if you say we imprison way too many people, I 100% agree. So now, but then you've got to break it down. So why did we imprison too many people, 80s, 90s, 2000s, etc.? Because we had insane drug laws. That marijuana possession was a very serious crime, right? And we filled the jails with people
There's one other
over
reason.
marijuana.
There's one other reason.
What's that?
There's a material reason for it. Slavery.
Yeah, I got you. So, and we built private prisons. The private prisons fund the politicians. All that is
Private
true.
prisons are a minor, even though they are objectively one of the most cruel and inhumane things that you could do. That Europeans look to and go, "What the fuck? You guys have that? You guys capitalize and profit off of the existence of fucking prisons?
Yes,
that's nuts." That's a small part of the puzzle, small part of the conversation.
So
the state prison structure also relies on slavery as a form of punishment.
But Haas, okay, first of all, I think that the prisons were far too many, and we were imprisoning too many people, and mainly on drug charges. And yes, there are nefarious other reasons that you point out. I point out private prisons. You point out slavery. And yes, slavery is real. They make them work for $1 or less per day, which is ridiculous. I know and fight against all of that.
Jank said, "Get your money up, not your funny up." You say, "Get your money up to the fucking to the prison system." Pay these motherfuckers more.
So okay, but look, but at the end of the day, what is it that we're putting people in prison for? If you say just generically, okay, let's have less people in prison, that doesn't make any sense. Should we let out murderers, rapists?
No.
Of course not, right? Mm-hmm. So the question is, what should people go to prison for? So we all
That's
agree
bad
they should
faith,
not go to
bro.
prison
When
for
people
marijuana
are saying
possession.
we
That's
have
insane,
too many,
right?
stop. When people say that we have too many people in prison, That's so bad faith. We're not talking about like, yes, just let all the murderers and rapists out free because we have too many people in prison. Jank, you damn well know what we're talking about, okay? You damn well know what we're talking about. To even like frame it like that is just okay, whatever.
How about that?
No,
Nobody
but
cares.
what we do in the prisons is beyond
of
inhumane.
Course. Of course.
So for like, there's all the jokes like, you're gonna go to prison, you're gonna get raped. Why is that funny? Why is that a thing that we think is normal? No, rape is not normal. People going to prison and getting raped is not normal. That's insane, true. Right? So do we need massive reform of the prisons? Yes. Do we actually?
Jake's 100% correct. Absolutely under no circumstances is a essay or rape joke funny. Doesn't matter.
And we know that creates less crime. Look at Norway. Recidivism is much lower in Norway, and they have much more humane prisons. So reasonable people agree, progressives agree, the great majority of the country agrees, but yet our goddamn politicians won't do it. So those are great places to start. When you get to the issue of cash bail, Haas, I was in favor of it, but now it clearly shows that there's a problem with recidivism. So can we agree, hey, you get
Jank. Norway doesn't have cash bail.
Cash to get out of sorry, then you need bail because you are incorrigible. You're committing more and more crimes, and I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you brutalize the citizens because it's not fair. It's not just.
Jank.
Talk about the things that are real, that are in the middle.
Hold on. This is important because
Norway has a doesn't have cash bail, Jank. Norway has a much less violent society. Yeah, because they have more social safety nets, and they actually have they actually try to, provide more for their citizens. I guarantee you that if we had a lot more robust social safety nets, we would have a lot less crime. I mean, it's just like it is what it is. In fact, it's been proven. All these countries that have way more social safety nets and provide way more for their citizens are going to see less crime. And by definition, you're going to see a less violent society.
The classic Michael Dukakis moment where crime is a hot button issue and it invokes a lot of passion out of people. So anecdotes work really well in comparison to actual empirical evidence. The problem with cash bail is not that like people just keep stealing cars. You can give me 1,000 examples overall of being like, this guy's a carjacker and he got released immediately and he jacked another car, right? Ultimately, the data does not show that these people are becoming repeat offenders. And what you are describing is an issue within the criminal justice system with a singular judge, or maybe some judges that fuck up every now and then. Because ultimately, if someone is a habitual reoffender, the job of the judge that you are bringing up is to say, no, dog, you're a poop guy. You're the guy. I'm sorry. You've smeared too much poop. Like, this is your second time doing this. I'm not offering you bail, because cash bail does not mean that judges have no power to offer. Judges have no power to stop you.
Right. Hassan is correct. That's how it should be. Hassan may be referenced the writings of Joyce Wilson Gilmore, among others, who does in fact advocate that even violent offenders should not be jailed. I don't know if I kind of just jumped in, so I don't know if that's what he was arguing earlier. But I agree that, like, for depending on the crime, like, obviously we're not talking about like, murders or sexual assault criminals, rapists, things like that. Like, obviously, and again, the judge should, at the end of the day, have the final discretion of saying, like, dude, you pose way too much of a public safety threat. It doesn't matter. But I agree that cash bail is a problem, and it encourages and creates this two-tier system where if you're wealthy, you're fine, and if you're not wealthy, then you're sitting in jail for crimes that, again, you may or may not even committed.
State, whereas no, the problem there is judges should have discretion Okay, and they should apply that discretion appropriately,
Yes.
rather than saying they are no longer able to apply discretion whatsoever because the law does not permit you. Because
I'm perfectly comfortable saying if someone does, especially if you go to three crimes, they got let out with no bail. No, sorry,
that's
brother.
quite literally the principle. You're describing the principle behind the 3 strikes law.
Except for the fact that one is about bail, and you're going to get an actual court date where you will receive justice and you will receive a trial,
which of course,
etc.
Which
the
of course,
other one is we take your
which may take
liberty
years,
away for the rest of your
which
life.
of course
It's
brings
a
us
giant
back.
difference.
Which of course brings us back to the major reason as to why people are just kind of letting people go, and that is that Rikers is an insane place to even fucking exist. And no, a lot of those people are not getting their fucking day in court immediately because the courts are fucking backed up.
Because it takes years sometimes. No judge has an absolute final say on the terms of sentence. State legislators routinely set hard limits on the sentence and terms of release are issued. Yeah, maybe not about sentencing. It's about the conditions of being released, whether or not you're out on bail or whatever. It should be. Personally, I don't know. That may be the case of the state of New York. But personally, I think that it should be up to the judge's discretion, based on the nature of the alleged crimes, to say like, okay, dude, you are a threat to public safety. You're a grave and imminent threat to public safety. So you're just done. But yeah.
Put you away. And if
I'm
you want to
shocked-
cry about it, well, sad day for you.
I'm shocked
You shouldn't
that-
have punched a poor lady in the subway 3 freaking different times.
I'm shocked that you do not see. On the one hand, you have sympathy for the other guy who was swept away under the same draconian rules when he like
Because
got
that guy
caught for
can't get out of
stealing.
prison for life. The
I
other
know.
guy just has to go to trial and prove he didn't do it.
Okay. So the guy that was suspected, because you don't have to actually do a crime to like get thrown in Rikers, right? The guy that was suspected,
yes,
in a
and
situation,
that does happen.
in a situation
but
where
much more common occurrence is guys doing crimes over and over and over and over and over.
Okay, no, that's not.
Recidivism is like the #1 problem.
Recidivism-
a tiny amount of criminals.
Why, Jank, though? Why? Even if that's the case, because even if that's the case, because I don't know if that's true or not, why is recidivism high? Is it because of cash bail? Is it because of cash bail that recidivism is high? No. That's not my understanding how that works, Jank. The only reason people commit crimes, depending on the nature of the crime, is because normally, generally, I should say, not normally, generally, it's socioeconomic. And if the socioeconomic environment or socioeconomic circumstances are the same, the chances are that that person is going to commit the same crime. Especially if they're given no out. That has nothing to do with cash bail.
Really good. See, again, all matter
You
of...
think that it just
all
that
matter...
everybody's making it up? CBS is making it up?
Well, they're not, as a matter of fact. If you look at the actual data coming from the National Retailers Association, they literally talk about shrink, which is not necessarily simply people stealing. 36% of that, the $112 billion number that they point to in terms of total shrink, actually is external theft in the form of organized retail theft, which, by the way, isn't the overwhelming majority of external theft that's happening. It's just a fucking media fantasy. Okay, 26.
No, it's not. We see with our own eyes, Haas.
Dude, do you want me to describe to you what the reality is by giving you empirical evidence, or are we going to talk like you're a reactionary conservative by just talking about
my
your
God.
fifis? Like, this is not
Beefies, you're crazy, man.
No.
You're driving people to a sense of
You're
insecurity.
literally. Oh my God, you're doing Ben
You
Shapiro.
think, no, brother, come on.
Facts
you tell
are-
me that Philadelphia didn't happen? Are you telling me they didn't go into that
No,
goddamn
of
store?
course it happened. Do you think that $112 billion of shrink is happening? 36%
always happens.
Okay, exactly.
But now it's worse because they've added this extra layer.
Is it worse? That's really interesting because according to the National Retailers Association,
the other
that
bad
fucking
NRA
same number that you hear in local media, that actual study shows that shrink has not increased in comparison to former years, and it's actually trailing along at 1%
So
increase.
all those shops in San
alongside,
Francisco are closed because they don't want to make money? Because they wanted to make some political point?
Do you think organized retail theft is capable of stealing $112 billion? Or do you think
not
that
the
it's
whole shrink, Haas?
Yeah, exactly. It's literally internal theft in the same way that
Has always existed.
Employees stealing 26%, which, by the way, totally on board with that. Keep doing that.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Not only that, but also there's inventory mismanagement, things that are damaged in the process. That's a part of shrink as well.
Always.
Shrink across the board has not increased in a dramatic way, according to the national.
Why are they closing down the stores?
Because
they close
real
down
estate.
Stores because you can't make money.
That's insane. They can't make money because of real estate, Jank. They can't make money because brick and mortar has no basis anymore.
Damn. Actually, hold on. Stop. Hassan is actually correct. In this point right here. That's the reason. And they save more money by closing these stores. By closing these stores and laying people off. Yeah, that's it.
In neighborhoods, that's crazy. You know why shrink is actually increased? Self-checkout. That's why shrink is actually increased. Because you know what contributes to shrink? That $112 billion number. You know what actually increases that? You and everyone else that goes into a fucking Wawa and steals the Skittles. What do you think is happening more frequently? Roving gangs of people that are able to steal billions of dollars of merchandise, or a sum total of every fucking American doing the same goddamn thing without even thinking about it when they just go into a Wawa and yoink a Skittles at 2 a.m. when they're high as fuck? That's what is actually the shrink.
But Haas, I'm not denying any of the factors that you mentioned. Those are all real factors. But you're denying the one factor that everyone can see with their eyes. So are you saying, so what should we do with those guys who break into those places?
Okay.
Shouldn't we put them in prison right away?
Stores are shutting down because they can't afford to exist.
Do I think that police should stop robberies? Yes, I do.
Thank you.
That is insane. No, that's not a few moment. Because the reality that you are dealing with is not what is actually happening, and
this is like the same conservative meme that these people went for to this day saying that entire cities were burned to the ground in the BLM riots. This is the same thing. It's the same thing.
That not any different than what Ben Shapiro does.
First of all, we all see that they walk into the stores, they take the stuff. We all see that the stuff gets locked up. We all see the stores closing down. Not only that, we all experience it. So finally,
wait,
can I
who's
just get
we?
to the anecdote
Okay.
that I was talking about? Because it's instructive,
No,
not because it improves definitively anything, but it's instructive for the point I'm trying to make, okay? Which is partly agrees with some of the things that you have said, okay? So we got a guy in the neighborhood. He's carrying around this metal pipe, and he's sharpened the edge, and it looks like a frickin' spear. There, by the way, there was another lady with a machete, and these are real stories. You can catch feelings over, but they're absolutely real. And by the way, the lady with the machete, nobody did anything about her because the cops say, "Oh no, we don't see the machete," and that's the cops
I
not
think
doing
we
their
actually
job,
went
right?
over this story.
But at the same time,
we actually went over some of these stories because I explicitly remember talking about Walgreens. And Jank won't put on this. Yeah, exactly. Jank loves his anecdotes. Right. This is what I'm saying. It's the same right wing talking point that still goes on till this day. How BLM literally burned down entire cities. Yeah, the execs of Walgreens admitted they lied. Yeah, I think I could have sworn I did a story on that. I did the article on this. This was last year or earlier this year. I can't actually see the date, but whatever. Yeah, we actually went over this. Yeah, it turns out that the commercial real estate it's not doing well, and it's also incredibly expensive, and also it's cheaper to just shut down, lay off everybody, and sell your stuff online. I mean, it's just that simple. And Hassan is actually correct here.
About this, you should care about how you vote. So that's the cops saying, I'm not going to do my goddamn job unless you vote Republican, unless you can let me kick people's ass for a living. I don't like solving crime. I like kicking ass and when I have an overwhelming advantage, right? So is that real? Yes, it's real. But it is also real, Haas, that when they bring them in, they let them out. And so what happened with the lady with the machete? She's back out in 48 hours.
Thank you for bringing this up because it made me more angry at the cops.
That's my point. Both things are true, Haas.
Okay,
cops
got
aren't
it.
doing their jobs. And if I was in New York City police, if I was Bill de Blasio back in the day, I don't know if you remember the.
So again, this has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with whether or not cash bail exists, right? Like the correct answer would be like, why aren't we giving the judges the discretion to say to like, okay, if this person is an imminent and grave threat to public safety, like, why are we letting them out? The answer isn't like, oh, we just got to eliminate cash bail. The answer is like, okay, well, why don't we implement prison reform or criminal justice reform that allows the judge to have discretion based on like the nature of the allegations, right? Like if a woman's threatening people with a machete, you're not gonna let that person out, like, right? Okay, whatever. It's not the fault of ending cash bail.
Crime was the reason, right? I at the time said that's fucking bullshit, and it didn't matter because everyone was doing the same thing that you're doing. Look around, crime is happening everywhere, right? Except Walgreens now openly states a year after the fact, oh yeah, I guess the CFO came out and said, the chief financial officer said that maybe we cried too much.
Nice to see a nobody turned into zombies after the national test today. Yeah, it's nice to see. Yeah, welcome everybody. Glad we all made it. This is on Twitch feed in slow-mo? No, it's in follower only.
So look, you're taking Walgreens as one example, and there's a lot of different
which I haven't followed, by the way.
So in that case, one of the other factors is probably larger, right?
Yeah. So what is the reason?
The point you make about
so
real
what do you
estate-
think it was?
The point you make about real estate is actually a perfectly good point.
So you think it was
and that is
Amazon?
also one of the factors.
Okay, so you think it was like same day delivery?
Terrible stream today. I
Amazon?
say we end it. Oh man, dude, you're right. You're right. I apologize. You know, one chatter says that the stream is terrible, so we should just end it. In fact, their name is a stream ender. So unfortunately, folks, sorry. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for joining. I apologize. Apparently, a username with the stream ender has decided unilaterally that this stream is terrible and we should just end it. Sorry, folks.
Over personal anecdotes should in that situation do what?
So Haas, look, if you want, next time I'll come with a book of statistics for you. But are you saying that in Portland, that the good progressives in Portland were full of shit and they panicked and they got rid of their progressive legislators and got tougher
Can't deny
on
the
crime?
Twitch names. Yeah, exactly. Wait, if you knew you were coming into debate, why didn't you brush up on the topics that you knew that you agreed to this debate, Jank? Why would I listen to you? Why would I listen to the person in conversation who's like, well, hold on, you know, I know that we came here to discuss ideas and to debate, but like, I didn't bring any facts. Facts? You want me to bring statistics? Nonsense. Still hoping the rapture still takes the evangelicals they expect to happen today so we can finally move forward. True. Jenk is straight up selling his book. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot. I understand. Yeah, this is what this is about. Got it. Yeah, Jank's not interested in any of that. He's just he just needs his book on display. Jank is a repository of anecdotes, no room for data. Correct.
Was overhyped.
Crime
and
is
they threw out their progressive legislators.
Crime is
because they were wrong.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that because in San Francisco, Chesa Boudin was recalled, right?
Right.
Because he's like woke George Soros back DA, and yet it's not like they got a handle on crime after that.
Because it's about the laws. It's not about one individual. So that's why I'm focusing on too many misdemeanors that should be felonies, and we got to put
too many
on,
misdemeanors
no cash
that
bail.
are
I'm
felonies.
giving very
Like what, Jank? Like what? The one example you gave, you were wrong. The one anecdote you were talking about with the poop person, you were wrong about. The poop person was charged with felonies, not misdemeanors.
There are because of these laws that we
in
passed.
some cities. What cities? Point to a single city where there's an under imprisonment issue
For the last 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Portland, Seattle, San Francisco.
Everybody to jail. Thank you, Jen.
San Francisco or in the California in its entirety. Okay, because San Francisco is like, what do you point to with San Francisco's under policing? Like the classic grand larceny restrictions have been limited, right? So why did it happen in the last year or so when that's been in place as a law for 10 fucking years almost?
That's because they started watching the local news and going, "Oh, we can do this, and there's no consequences. Let's just all go steal shit."
Okay,
because
yeah,
nobody's getting arrested.
Jank is literally making shit up.
But we already established that retail theft has not actually increased according to the Retail Association. So where is that happening? That is outside of the bounds of reason.
So look, you're coming at all right, Huss, you win. And next time I will come with credible stats about crime because you're obsessed with proving that our eyes are
listen,
lying
bro.
to us.
Listen, you, Jank, you and actual Justice Warrior can go have a conversation about statistics. All right. Anyways, this is clown stuff. All right, that was a good meme while it lasted. How about you and actual Justice Warrior get together and share stats? Okay. Yeah, haven't you set your auto claim bonus channel points? What for Hassan? I literally just followed his channel. Or are you talking about my channel? Imagine coming to a debate and being upset that you're being asked for data. Right. Like okay, let's set aside like the whole like debate lord stuff, okay? Let's for Twitch. No, I haven't. I don't even know how to do that. Let's table the whole like debate lord stuff is pretty cringe, which it is, but okay, let's table that for a second. If you're actually gonna have a debate with somebody, like what why wouldn't you come with like evidence? Like you're supposed to like be able to defend your ideas. If not, then like what is the point of this, right? Why am I listening to you? Yeah, this is like literally it's indistinguishable from like trying to debate like actual Justice Warrior, okay? Except like at least actual Justice Warrior attempts to like bring some kind of statistics that he is like massaged so much that they're unrecognizable. But whatever. Like Jesus Christ, Jank. Yeah, like what evidence? What is evidence? And then being like, you win. Next time I'll bring the receipts next time. Bro. If you can't establish your points, why do you believe them? Like, why are you spewing all this stuff that you have no clue about? Because if you did, you would have remembered the evidence behind it, because that's why you believe it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just like asking too much here, but like if I believe something, an example, I believe that universal healthcare systems would be superior. And the reason for that is because, well, for a number of reasons, they're cheaper. They're more efficient, and they don't require the same amount of. There's no such thing as like market failures when it comes to a universal healthcare system, whereas a for-profit system does. And you lose a lot of coverage for people. So it's more efficient in that way. You get more coverage. It's cheaper. These are things that you can point to with studies, and just, I guess if you want to use anecdotes, you can use that too. But mainly, if you're operating for profit, then that's your motivating factor, right? You're not interested in healthcare. Healthcare is a secondary thing. Versus like if you have a universal healthcare service, it's just a service that's provided based on your tax dollars, and it ends up being cheaper. I mean, like the reason why I believe these things is because I took the time to at least rationalize the belief, right? At least I attempted to rationalize why I like a universal healthcare system over a for-profit system. But Cenk is just saying stuff. And then when asked, like, okay, well, where are you getting these ideas? I gotta get the receipts later. Our brains have two parts, hardware and software. The first line of his new book, phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff. What's the problem where you don't know enough to know about? What's that problem where you don't know enough to know you don't know what you're talking about? Yeah. Yeah. I'm reading it now. It seems to be a stream of consciousness in the first section. Did Cenk just go on like a really massive rant? I mean, like he did this with the op-ed, right? That he wrote. Did he just go like off on a massive rant, hit text to speech, and then printed it out? It's hilarious to watch Cenk on mute, yelling with his hands. True. Cenk is just operating from emotion mainly. It seems like it. He's just saying things. And when asked, like, okay, well, why do you believe this? No evidence.
I don't know why that machete lady was let out. Okay, so I wasn't there in her court trial. But in terms of tons of sexual assault here, petty, I just looked up like common misdemeanors, right? And we can get it, like we should do a real analysis of it. But some forms
what are you
of assault,
talking about?
And
Okay.
DUIs, on and on and on.
No. I love that. We will get into that in a second. This is very important, and it deserves self-examination. This is an issue that happened in the real world in your life. This is something that you have used in your commentary. Should you, in your opinion, at least do the due diligence and have checked to see if it was a misdemeanor or a felony when it's an example that you've used before last time you were here? Since between last time you were here and now, do you think that you should have
2 weeks ago?
Oh, okay. You were then you were talking about a
I'm
separate
going to read you
issue.
misdemeanors in California: assault, battery, indecent exposure, shoplifting, domestic battery, trespassing, receiving stolen property.
Trespassing.
Okay.
Trespassing. Yeah, so I guess no trespassing. Truly one of the most heinous crimes.
Says I got a deranged person in my front yard, and I'm going to call the cops, and he starts to sexually pleasure himself in front of her window. And he says, go ahead, call the cops. They won't show up, which is partly your point, Haas. But when they do show up, they go, what do you want me to do? I can't. They're going to let him go. I'm going to bring him in, and he's going to come right back here. He's like, ha. And so you know what the guy does? He goes into their backyard and just starts hanging out and pleasuring himself and doing whatever the hell. And so
I remember him using this last time.
Trespassing. It's so funny.
I am laughing at that.
No,
because,
I'm going to put that sumbitch away.
Okay, listen.
I remember him. Is this like a real story? Like, is this from a real story, or is he making up an anecdote or like a hypothetical?
Masturbator here as well. So
yeah, they're all over LA because we don't put them away.
Because
but they actually, by the way, those guys should be institutionalized. They shouldn't go to prison. They should go to a mental health facility that is properly funded, that takes care of them.
Okay,
but
good.
What we
I'm glad
do,
we at least agree on that.
Yeah, but what we shouldn't do is go, whatever, it's not a problem. Just jerk off all over LA, and kids will see it. Maybe
what are we
get
watching? I don't know.
Who cares?
Quite frankly.
You kind of do, Haas.
That's the
so
most.
What do you want to do with it?
It's real in his head. Yeah, I get it.
You already said what I want.
Oh, it's real? Okay.
Okay, so now we don't have that current system in place. You and I agree on what the ideal is.
Okay, wait.
So what do you think we should do today?
Why do you think that I think that you should be able to masturbate in public?
Because Haas, you're constantly saying these are imaginary issues. It's
I never
not
said
a big deal. So
No,
okay, so what do you think we should do with that guy?
I don't
want to put words in your mouth.
I don't think that these are imaginary issues. I've never said that these are imaginary issues. I'm simply stating that some of these issues are demonstrably and nefariously weaponized and propagandized by mainstream media, specifically local news outlets, when the reality is very different and empirical evidence shows that the reality is very different. As a matter of fact, in many instances, the very same authorities that we're getting these numbers from openly admit that these are not as severe as the media presents
By the way,
it.
no, the crime problem is way worse because the cops aren't even bringing them in. So
But-
there's
Oh
all
my
this
God.
crime that's not even
Okay,
being
so-
reported.
Jesus Christ.
Please, hold on. You asked me what my perspective is, and I'm telling you what my perspective is. You and I have already, going through this conversation, you've already admitted one of the major problems is that the police aren't doing their fucking jobs, right? You already recognize that. You also recognize that they lie all the time. Do you think that the 86% of police which voted for Donald Trump, right? Do you think that those guys
This is like
have,
okay, so this is like explaining to that debate between, I think it was actually Hassan and Andrew Tate had that exchange where Andrew Tate is like, so if you're in a car and you had several bad experiences with women driving, does that mean that all women are bad drivers? Or are you going to take a step back and look at what the data tells you and you realize actually men are way more reckless when it comes to driving than women are? And then Andrew Tate responds like, well, I can't unsee what I see, you know? I can't unsee what I see. If I've gotten in the car with like 3 bad drivers, then like that's it. You know, every time a woman gets in the car, then I'm going to assume she's a bad driver. That's exactly what Cenk is doing. That's exactly what Cenk is doing. He's refusing to step back and look at the whole picture and instead saying like, well, I only see what I see. There are good driver amongst women, 100% true. Yeah, well, men take way more risks and are way more reckless when it comes to driving. That's just facts. But the point being is not about women drivers. The point being is that Cenk is refusing to take a step back and looking at the plurality of data and like what the story actually is, and instead he refuses. And instead, he refuses to do that and just zeroes in on what I can't ignore what I see. Nobody's telling you to, Cenk. Nobody's telling you to. I feel women have issues with parking in small spaces more than men, but that's just me. It is just you. It literally is just you. It's not a man or a woman thing. It literally that's in your head. That's in your head.
is not calculated on clearance rates. Crime is calculated on arrest numbers.
That's what I'm saying. They're not even arresting them.
Okay. Then the problem isn't the woke pervert DAs that are backed by George Soros. The problem is, and I think you and I agree on this, the police not doing their jobs.
No, but Haas, first of all, I never said woke pervert Soros. That's a Republican talk.
I know. Well,
Okay.
Well, Cenk.
do align a lot with Republicans.
No,
Cenk.
Look, I just explained it.
The reason why he's doing that is because you sound like them.
1,000 crimes in a row. Well, then you're ceding ground of sanity to Republicans.
I don't think the single person. I don't think a single person says that. Does anyone?
So Haas,
I've
what
never met
do
a
you
person
want
that says
to do
that.
with the guy masturbating in the street right now? We haven't built the great facilities that you and I want to build.
I already told you.
What do you do with him?
The guy masturbating on the streets needs to have both social workers and police officers, which currently exist, come to the scene, okay, and then take the necessary steps. Take the necessary steps to bring them immediate mental health treatment and some form of apprehension in that moment. I agree. That is not something that I disagree with you on at all. I am not if crime is happening, we shouldn't stop it from happening. That is the entire point of why there is a fucking police force. No one says that shouldn't happen. There is not a single, I know abolitionists, okay? I love them.
Cenk blind spot is only acknowledges in-person experience unless he has no experience to draw on. Right. He literally can only see what's in front of him.
Overall, okay, they're leading the charge on criminal justice reform. Overall, I've never met someone who goes, if someone is jerking off in your vicinity, you have to let them go. I've never met, maybe they exist.
Good. So
maybe they exist, but they are far from politically important.
Then let's make it broader. Okay, cash bail. You say infinite no cash bail, or is there a moment where you would say they've committed too many crimes, they're going to have to get bail?
It should be based.
I think that this literally has to be a discretion issue within the courts.
Yeah, that's it. It's just that simple.
Routine offender, then of course judges are going to put them in a facility. Like they
haven't yet, but okay.
No, that's not true. They are actually doing that.
It depends on
they
the
are actually
jurisdiction.
doing that. But the problem is the media makes it seem like they're not doing that. If they weren't doing that, then our
Nope. Okay. Anyways,
in Los Angeles, in specifically in California. California is an incredible carceral state. We have a massive problem with prisoner population.
We're letting people out of prison left and right.
You
We're
and I
letting
have
out
this
serious.
That's
bro,
serious.
that's literally happening in his fantasy land. Anyways, all right. I think we get the gist of where this is going. Sorry, I saw like a tweet saying that like Jank was debating Hassan. So yeah, I just had to step in for a second. Anyways, all right. Anyways. Meme article. All right. So in this particular poll, Nikki Haley is above Ron DeSantis. It comes up to states above before the GOP candidates will flood New Hampshire next week. Starting with the former president on Monday and most of the rest of the field at a weekend cattle call hosted by the state GOP. DeSantis' free fall in New Hampshire. He once led Trump in the state. Back in the January poll has opened up a real race for second place in the nation. I don't even know why they bother, right? Because like none of these people are going to beat Trump, right? Like it's unless like extenuating circumstances, Trump is going to be the nominee. Has opened up the real race for second place in the nation, first in the nation primary state that could energize Republicans critical of Trump. And it's Haley, who's emerging from the pack as she capitalized on rising interest in her candidacy as following her standout debate performance. Make me dab, all right. Dab complete. But Trump remains immovable at top of the field, and no other candidate cracked the double digits in the Suffolk Globe USA Today survey. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie notched 6% support, while entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott got roughly about 4%. Media must have horse race politics story. They will die. True. I want for Michelle. What? Former Vice President Mike Pence in North Dakota, Governor Doug Burgum trailed even further behind with just 1% each. Womp, womp, womp. Yep. I want to vote for Michelle? Like Michelle Obama? I don't think she's running. I don't think she's running, and quite frankly, I don't think she will. Supreme Court weighs curbing. I can hope. Well, I doubt it. Be honest, I doubt it. In fact, I remember her specifically saying that she didn't really have like a big interest in running or being involved in politics. Said multiple times she didn't want to run. Yeah. Yeah, I figured. The country really needs her? Nah. I think that what we really need is an actual like progressive like populist who cares about the working class. That's the type of person that we actually need. someone who actually cares about the working class. Anyways. All right, folks. I was going to go for this, but like, I mean, what's the point? The circus continues. Jim Jordan announced his speaker bid. Republicans are floating around the idea that Trump should be speaker. I think Steve Scalise might throw his hat in the ring. I don't know. It's a pure clown show there, so all bets are off. And who's to say that it's going to take like forever and a half to get a speakership? And that's only going to happen if the Dems actually vote for said speakership. So who knows? Supreme Court weighs curbing disability rights lawsuit. The Supreme Court on Wednesday today grappled with whether a disability rights campaigner can sue hotels for failing to disclose accessibility information if she doesn't plan to actually book a room. What? How can that be? Like, even before you, even if you didn't want to book a room, it should be very plain and obvious how accessible your facilities are. This is a fashion. Basically, I'm surprised he has a degree in computer science. Well, the case involving activist Deborah Laufer could curtail the ability of testers to bring lawsuits aimed at benefiting the disabled community as a whole by ensuring that hotels comply with the ADA. During the oral arguments, some justices appeared skeptical that Laufer faced discrimination just from searching online to see if hotels listed accessibility information. Lurking in the background is another legal question. Like, wait, by definition, that is already a problem with accessibility. Because, like, if I have a problem with mobility, sorry to jump in, but if the details or pictures not included or not listed, right, like, by definition, that's right. By definition, if I'm disabled and I don't have, like, mobility, if I can't even see whether or not I'll be able to, like, go here, like, that's already, like, messed up. That's already, in my opinion, in violation of the ADA. You're gonna force people. You're gonna force people to, like, physically go there to determine whether or not there's accessibility. It's a gimmick to keep people with disabilities out of establishments so the affluent don't have to see them. 100%. Lurking in the background is another, and does SCOTUS mean officially recognize disability advocates by the state to correct it? We'll see. We'll see if the Supreme Court gives a favorable decision, but, you know, hard to say. Hard to say. Lurking in the background is another legal question on whether the Supreme Court could even decide the case, in part because Laufer has since withdrawn her lawsuit and ownership of the hotel in question has changed. It was unclear whether the justices would take that approach, which will leave the broader legal issue unresolved. The court heard an appeal brought by Atchison Hotels, which operated in the Coast Village Inn and Cottages in Maine at the time which the lawsuit was filed. The hotel's lawyers argued that Laufer does not have legal standing to bring the case because she has no intention of staying at the hotel. But I can't make that decision if I'm a disabled person. I can't make that decision if it is required of me to actually go there physically, especially if I'm, I don't know, disabled and not able to have mobility. Like, if I'm shopping around for hotels, I'm not going to be, like, going from hotel to hotel in person, right? Like, that seems unreasonable. Laufer is disabled and uses a wheelchair, said in her 2020 lawsuit that the hotel's website did not identify accessible rooms and did not provide other relevant information, which it should, especially if a person is also in a wheelchair. Like, that's kind of important to know before you make a booking. You need to know if you have accessibility. But she had failed to show that she suffered an injury, a requirement necessary to establish standing. During the statement, Justice debated what plaintiffs like Loeffler would need to allege to show that they have suffered an injury, including whether they would need to try to book a room or have a concrete plan to visit the area where the hotel is located. Conservative Justice Neil Gore suggests that spending the afternoon clicking through these things online was not sufficient to establish standing. It's pretty ironic that now all of a sudden the Supreme Court is concerned with standing, given their previous decisions basically made from completely fictitious events. So that's pretty rich. I was in 2 hotel rooms with plenty of issues to cut yourself or head injuries possible. Are you about to too close to the actual bed? Yeah, and like these kind of things should be, I don't know, like either on their website or somewhere that you don't need to actually have to go. Or I guess standing means, I guess, yeah, literally, because like the Supreme Court has made decisions based on hypothetical scenarios that didn't even happen. And like now all of a sudden, now like I guess standing matters. Brett Kavanaugh, another conservative, expressed similar sentiments. Why should the individual lay their whole life out in public just to book a temporary accommodation? Exactly. Brett Kavanaugh, another conservative, with similar sentiments, wondering if people actually experience discrimination when they go to a website and find out that they would be discriminated against if they physically went to the hotel. Yes. Wait. Isn't that like by definition like exclusive? Like if I go to a website and I realize that I actually can't physically go there because I don't know whether or not I'll be like able to physically go there, that's by definition discriminatory, is it not? Passively, yes. I would say so, yeah. Similarly, liberal Justice Ketanji Brown brought up the civil rights movement and questioned whether a black person witnessed a restaurant refusing to serve black people would be able to sue without personally trying to sit down and order food. But no, it would be like it would be like saying I'm trying to go and book a hotel, but it's like, I don't know, the 19 whatever, and I don't know, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of the analogy here that would be in this scenario. Would you be able to sue a restaurant that explicitly put like a sign or something, right? Like that's pretty clear to me. I don't know. Or as I typed before, the phone, bed, or door actually dangerous or mobility disabled. Yeah, and like that's a problem if it's not listed on the website. Actually, now the more that I think about it, this doesn't even make sense. I don't know if her example would make sense. Maybe I'm just misreading it. I can't make heads or tails out of this. Because the point is that if I, as a disabled person, cannot access or don't know if I can access it, then by definition I'm pretty excluded, aren't I? She suggests that in a case before the court, Loeffler is more like the person witnessing discrimination than the person experiencing it directly. Well, no. Because I'm trying to book a hotel. Like what? So I have to make a plan? I have to pretend that I'm making a plan to book a hotel? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Also kind of fucked up to equate a POC to a person with disabilities. Yeah, like it just wasn't computing. I was trying to I was trying to like make sense of the analogy, but it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Discrimination is still there in the example, right? But Sonia Sotomayor, one of Jackson's liberal colleges, appeared to be sympathetic to the idea that Lawford would have been injured purely by lack of accessibility information on the hotel website. I thought discrimination means I am being treated differently than other people. If I go on a drive to a place and there's a sign that says no disabled person is welcome, I've been discriminated against, correct? Right. A federal district court threw out Lawford's lawsuit on standing grounds, but in a 2020 ruling in the Boston-based U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals revived the claim. Ocean's lawyer noted in the court finds that Lawford has filed more than 600 lawsuits targeting small hotels and bed and breakfasts. Litigation costs can be substantial for small businesses facing such claims. Oh well. Lawford's lawyer counted their own court papers and that the language of the ADA allows for anyone who is disabled and therefore subject to discrimination on basis to sue if an entity has violated the law. Without such lawsuits, hotels would have no incentives to comply with the ADA. True. The Biden administration has sided with the hotel on the point in a brief filed in the case with Solicitor General Elizabeth Ploger, writing that by only viewing the hotel information, Lawford had not suffered an injury. That just seems like a distinction without a difference, but whatever. Semantics. Ploger defended the ability of testers to enforce civil rights laws more generally, citing an 1982 case in which the Supreme Court upheld the ability of testers to bring lawsuits challenging house discrimination. But civil rights and law and ADA still exist. Yes, they do. Weird comparison of POC and disabled cannot change it. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me what her logic was or the analogy that she was trying to put. But the fact that the ADA was passed on 1990 says something. I was born in 84. Jeez. It was passed on July 26th. My birthday. It was passed on my birthday. Look at that. July 26th. Yeah, like the point being is that if I'm a disabled person and Alio, you can testify to this. If you're trying to go out on a trip to somewhere, I don't know, visit another state or you're going out to somewhere, it doesn't matter. Vacation. In my opinion, it would be discriminatory by default if you go on a hotel website and you can't make the determination of whether or not there's accessibility accommodations. I mean, I'm just saying, like, and even if you call the hotel, employees may or may not know, like, what specifically your needs are. Like, that should be already calculated into the way a hotel is set up or a dining place is set up or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever establishment you're dealing with. That should already be built in. To my understanding, that's the whole point of having the ADA. And the ADA Act of 1990 is over 30 years old. It shouldn't be incumbent upon you to find out when you're there to be like, well, actually, this wasn't accessible. I don't know. But it is, that's what we're dealing with right now. We'll see if what this decision ends up being, or if they're going to throw it out or not. But we'll definitely keep track of what's going on here. One final check-in.
And what I'm telling you is, I will literally put someone
that major
on investigating it more, so we can get even greater clarity on what laws were tweaked and what weren't, and what worked and what didn't. And I hope that.
Oh God, he's still going. He's still going. He's literally still going. You can literally show him the entirety of the picture and he's still going.
Again, okay? Crime per capita population has increased since 2018 when it was at 4.93.
It sounds like they're trying to argue whether or not able-bodied people are the only ones allowed to appear in public, right? Massachusetts, if a building is finished before the 1968 ADA Act, then it may not apply. That's nonsense. In my opinion, they should be retrofitted.
Haas, you just both said it was minor and massive. So, yes, in 2019 it was massive.
Because
overall,
the
it is
types of
significant.
crimes that are increasing, is not the types of crimes that you're using on television, the types of crimes that you see on TV. And a major part of the issue in terms of crime increasing in the United States of America is, or rather, the major issue that you have is police not enforcing in moments where they're supposed to. They're not doing their fucking jobs.
Okay,
this
Haas,
is my
we're
major
super
argument.
Clear on it. You're saying that there are factors like COVID and police not doing their jobs, and I am agreeing with those factors, and I'm adding one other factor that you're not agreeing with. Okay, we're clear on it. Okay?
It's not, but that is a very significant factor because ultimately this increase doesn't simply happen due to under-policing or due to
I'm not saying it only
due to like
happens
police
But he
budget.
did.
No,
He
that's a
said
big
we need
part
to-
of the problem. You're looking at the situation. And
He literally said that we need to be locking people up more. That's literally what he said.
Groves or whatever the fuck.
Those
And
are some of the issues that some municipalities deal with.
If that
It
was
is
the
not
case,
the only
then
issue. I'm not saying it's the
if
only
that was the
issue.
case,
You're
then
saying
South
it's not an
Carolina.
issue.
If that was the
You're saying
case,
it's not an
if that
issue.
was the case, then Texas, South Carolina, all of these red states, Oklahoma, they would not be experiencing similar problems. It almost feels like there's
Haas, we've been over this 1,000 times
What?
now. You're saying that there are a couple of factors, like two, basically, COVID and the cops not doing their jobs, and I'm saying there's three factors. That's I'm not saying that your factors aren't correct. I stipulated that right in the beginning because I don't stipulate it. I agree with you. I agree the cops need to do their jobs, and I agree that COVID drove up crime as well. But
why?
If we wanna win, we figure out what is the reasonable answer.
What's the issue
to
with
what
that?
Should be
What's the issue with that
misdemeanors,
message?
What should be felonies, and to what degree should we do no cash bail?
What is
I can't be any more reasonable than that.
Okay, here's the problem. You talk about certain crimes being flipped to misdemeanors, okay, and then being plea bargained away. This also would still absolutely correspond to arrest records in whatever specific crime you're talking about, okay? It should bear itself out in the data. The problem is that it doesn't, okay? Murders have increased, and yet murders in and of itself have not been flipped in any capacity.
Right, they're not like releasing murderers. Jesus Christ. If I read the data correctly, the two biggest crime spikes were housing crash in the beginning of the pandemic. Whoa, wow. And what happened during that? Damn, a really big like socioeconomic problem where people were experiencing difficulties financially. Damn. It's almost like crime is being driven, or the majority of crime is being driven by socioeconomic causes, like, I don't know, poverty.
That, but that's definitely a fact, and that's definitely.
Okay, I'm glad, especially considering that when we look at violent crimes per capita, California and New York and even other states with much better, even Illinois, other states with notoriously better gun laws, as a matter of fact, have significantly less gun violence in general, but also violent crimes in general are lower in those states in comparison to.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so you do understand that other factors in consideration are significantly more important than like.
No, I've now said like 2,000 times that there are other factors and they're important, and so and Haas, you mentioned that in LA, homicide has gone up, but other crimes have not. just talked about it on the national level, and you acknowledge that there was a significant increase 2019 on.
Why,
so,
Jank?
Don't cherry pick LA in that regard. We're talking about national average. Crime has gone up, and for the billionth time, number of contributing factors, the ones you're pointing out are perfectly legitimate, and the one I'm pointing out, I believe, is also perfectly legitimate for all the reasons that I have stated. Don't agree, that's okay, but let's move on, right? So, okay, so that's one of the issues when now moving to a second, we just discussed the policy. Now, when you move on to the politics, which is different, right?
Well, I know the reason why we can't move on from it is because like Los Angeles is a major hub of crime that everyone always uses as an example.
But if you notice, I said San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm using it is because one, I live here, and it's the same exact fucking falsified crime narrative in general that exists here as well, and I see it in my own fucking backyard, which is why this is something that I've looked into quite a bit and tried to understand. The reason why I'm using Los Angeles,
these two are rhetorical Energizer bunnies.
I have
true.
all the data, and it's where I see a shit ton of counterfactual information in the media over. I think you and I both agree that people say that like, crime is a major problem in Los Angeles too. You've used personal anecdotes from crime happening in Los Angeles, and one of the reasons why you say because the data doesn't correspond to your anecdotes is, well, they're just not reporting it, or, well, actually, as a matter of fact, police are just not even arresting or apprehending criminals that are doing violent fucking crimes.
Yeah, I do believe that.
And that is, well, that's ridiculous. That's a
It's not
major...
ridiculous. So remember when the
no,
guy
that's
broke
a
into my
major
house?
problem.
You remember like 10, 12 years ago when somebody broke into my house?
Yeah.
At that time, did I flip out? Did I go, oh my God, it's a personal anecdote, and it was my house, right? Oh my God, crime's out of control. I didn't.
Okay. I mean, like, whatever, listen, bro, whatever mental gymnastics you need to perform to make yourself correct in your own head is whatever it takes, I guess, right? Okay. Nice meme. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. I'm hungry. Folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It really does help us out. I appreciate it. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the biddies and all that awesome stuff. If you can't support the channel monetarily, please go on to the YouTube channel. It really does help us out. Spread the word far and wide that we're here Monday to Thursday, 5 p.m. Bring a friend. Open Twitch profile, better TTV7 under auto claim heading. Check bonus channel points and under channel points head. If you're interested, got it. I need to copy paste that. Copy. Now open up a notepad so I can remember. Sticky notes. There you go. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, folks, as always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. And I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Michael Hassler. I appreciate it. See ya. Peace. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.